So I grew up in a household with parents from two very different cultures. So my father is Samoan and my mother is Australian, Caucasian. So there was always these two different sides in my household, and I think that really affected the way that I saw the world. So much so that I never really felt completely Australian, Caucasian, whatever that is these days, and I never really felt fully Samoan. So my identity was always spread across these two places, and as I grew up, I think this developed a lot of empathy in me. I remember going to a conference in Sydney, and while I was at this conference, I was 14 years old, and there was a speaker who got up and started talking about an organisation called Compassion. And this organisation exists today to sponsor children in developing nations in regions where they can't be supported by their own families to get education and food and all of that kind of thing. So for me, that was a really profound experience, because I saw at a young age that there were other kids out there very similar to myself who couldn't feed themselves. They didn't have families that could actually support them and give them the opportunities that they needed to thrive. So I remember thinking at that age, I was very disturbed by it, and I thought, I'm going to do something about this. I don't know what that's going to be, and I didn't know what it was going to be at that stage, but I always knew there was going to be something that I would do to stop this injustice that I saw. So I carried that attitude throughout my teen years, and as I went through high school, I began to realise that I wasn't really suited to the academic system per se. I remember developing an interest in medicine around about the age of 16, which was around the same time that my father was diagnosed with a brain tumour on his frontal lobe. And I remember at that time being very curious as to why this had happened. I'd obviously heard about people getting cancer, but to actually have my own father experience that made it very, very real for me. It was very visceral, and I began to get very curious about how does this happen to people. And so I became more and more interested in the human body, and as I progressed through the later stages of high school, I started looking into the different courses in medicine, the different pathways that I could go down, and I read very widely about nutrition and the human body and exercise and all of these different areas to do with health. And I realized that becoming a medical doctor didn't really seem suited to who I was. So I was pushed on by this need to understand why people get sick, and also this other childhood need to change people's lives, to help people who are suffering from injustice. These were the two strong themes of my growing up years. And another major theme for me was always business. I loved the ability that business gave you to be generous. I loved the ability to be free and to live a life on your terms. Remember when I was 17 years old, I designed my first t-shirt brand, and this was based off of my father's Samoan culture, so I borrowed a lot of the motifs and the themes and the recurring lines and the geometric shapes that is so prevalent in Samoan design. And I designed this series of t-shirts, and I started selling them to my friends, even to school teachers, to people, just everyone I knew. I'd be selling these shirts, and I ended up selling all of the shirts that I printed, and I made like almost $1,000 or something, which back then was like massive for me. So that was my first taste of business, and I realized I love this and I want to do something with this. And over the years, it's just been the same thing over and over again. I've gone into different businesses, and I've found that it's really just the most fulfilling experience for me to start an idea, to create something, and then to go out and share that with other people. And I'm in charge of the amount of income I can earn. I'm in charge of how good my product or my service is. And for me, that's just the biggest buzz that's available. I really love that. And at the same time, in my early 20s, I started to see I started to look more into the greed that's involved in business, and I did a bit of travel. I traveled to about 20 countries in my early 20s, late teens, and I started to see some of the devastating effects of corporate greed up front. And I could see how corporate greed really affected people's lives on such a real level. And again, like when my father got sick, it just became real for me. And that was devastating. That was absolutely devastating, going to some countries in Southeast Asia where people were begging on the streets and people were suffering from illnesses that were easily treatable. And all of this just continued to fuel my passion to find a business or a method by which I could create massive change. And so I got into project management in construction because I thought that'd be a great tool to be able to get into international development and aid. But then after a few years of doing that, I realized this isn't fulfilling me creatively. It's not giving me the amount of creative license. And not really about that so much. I don't really see how I can connect this to changing people's lives on a scale as big as what I want to do. So I became very interested in psychology and in people's behavior, and I became very interested in coaching because I realized that ultimately we can make change by giving people things. We can give people food, we can sponsor kids, we can build people houses, we can do all of these things that involve us just giving stuff to people. But the only long-term fundamental change that we can create comes from the relationship that we have with a person, with a group of people. That relationship is what facilitates change, because it's only when you've got a relationship of trust and deep connection to someone that they can look at who you are and they can start to model off who you are. And for me, the essence of coaching is all about that. It's not about just teaching people techniques and strategies. It's about being a role model so that other people can believe that they can have the same thing for themselves. It's just being an example of what people can have. So back to my overall story here of how I want to use business. My vision now is to change 1 billion lives. And that's a radical number. I'm fully aware that is a very big number, but I fully believe that it's possible. I believe that it's possible through the tool of business. And I spent a long time thinking, what is the best business model to do this with? And really, ultimately, it doesn't really matter what business model that we use to create change in the world. What it comes down to is it going to create change in the world? If it's a yes, then I'm all in for that. And so I began to explore wellness and health, and I became a personal trainer. And I saw that, right now across the entire world, wellness is starting to get taken very seriously. People are looking beyond making profit and just surrounding themselves with possessions and material. People are becoming so serious now about actually their physical bodies, but even deeper than that, people are really becoming more curious about what it is that makes us thrive as human beings on an emotional level, on a heart level. And so wellness for me is the perfect industry to be able to facilitate, to be able to reach people. And the need now, even in our developed nations in the West, the need is so great. People are crying out to get help with their emotional, with their physical, with their spiritual problems. They're asking these big questions now because people want to know what it really means to be alive and to fully thrive. So I see such an enormous opportunity here for people working in this space, for wellness practitioners, for people who are involved in nutrition and eating and exercise and all of these different areas. I see such a big opportunity for these people to step up and to be role models and to show society what it's like to thrive in our health, to thrive in our emotions and in our minds, to be truly connected to ourselves and all of the people around us. So I, as a business coach now, I'm just so honored to have the opportunity to be able to come alongside wellness practitioners, people in this health and wellness space, and go, look, this is your vision. You want to help people, you want to change lives. It's amazing. In order to do that, you need to create a really clear message that reaches people. You need to create a message that reaches people where they're at, that they can really resonate with. And as a business coach, that's what I do all day, every day. I help people create their story. I help people to tell their story. I help people to get their story out there, online, offline, and I help them with this whole process of scaling up their business What does it look like to bring more clients into your business? How do you go about doing that? What does it look like to organize your business so that it's systemized and you're not running around like a chicken without a head trying to put fires out all the time, but you're actually in control and everything's just set up strategically so it just rolls along nicely and you slowly build progress up over a long amount of time and you just end up changing a whole bunch of lives. So that's my vision, and that's what I love helping people do. I truly feel like for the first time in my life, I'm living in complete flow. I'm living completely in alignment with who I've been created to be. So it's such a privilege and it's so exciting for me to be here. And every day is bringing up new challenges for me. Every day is a new learning curve and more growth all the time. But because I'm so connected to this vision now, because in Australia alone, I want to see 5 million lives changed in the next 5 years. Because across the world, I know that this is true. I know that if we raise up enough leaders in the health and wellness space, we can change 1 billion lives. And it all comes back to people being leaders and stepping up to be everything they're born to be. It comes back to people sharing their message authentically and coming from this place of heart and not ego, building up businesses that don't exist to just rip people off and just about making profit, but exist so that they can change lives. That's what I'm about. Business is such a powerful tool, and I want to see people step up and use business as the powerful tool for positive change that it truly is. So that's my vision, and that is my mission, and that is why I'm here. That's why I'm doing what I do. So to everyone out there who's working in this space, keep doing what you're doing. Keep getting the right people around you. Keep putting those systems in place that are going to help you go from maybe a business that's comfortable, maybe a business that's struggling, up to a business that is absolutely thriving and is bringing clients through every day of the week and is changing lives every day of the week. That is my hope for you. That is my dream for you. So I love what you guys are doing. Keep going and power on. We're here. We're in this together. We're going to change the world.